Guys, welcome back to Read Aloud. And joining me, she's gonna bite me. Joining me is Buns and Emma. It's our whole family here. For Family Read Aloud, we are on chapter 16, I believe. And don't force her to stay there though. Oh, she bit me. That's your fault, Emma.
No.
Let her go. Okay. The silly boy. I have a silly girl and a silly rabbit. All right. Are you comfortable? Are you calm? The children were cross because Mother had said that the painters were to paint the walls of the playroom and mend a window. And this meant that they couldn't play there for some time. Their playroom was built right at the bottom of the garden, and it was quite safe for their friend, Chingy the pixie, to live there, for no one had ever went to the playroom garden except for themselves. But now the painters would be there for a week. How tiresome. It's a good thing it's a summertime, Chingy, so that you can live in the garden for a bit, said Molly. Oh, don't worry about me, said Chingy. I've got a nice cozy place in the hollow of an oak tree. It's the chair I'm thinking about. Where shall we keep it? We can't have it flying about while the painters are there. We'd better put it into the box room indoors, said Peter. That's I'm so distracted. That room has just been repainted, so I don't think Mother or anyone will think that it must be turned out just yet. It will be safe there. So, when no one was looking, Peter and Molly carried the wishing chair up to the box room and stood it safely in the corner. They shut the window up tightly so that it couldn't fly out if its wings grew. They couldn't have Chingy to play with them in the house because he didn't want anyone to know about him. So he asked Thomas, the little boy over on the road, to come and play soldiers on a rainy afternoon. They didn't stop. Let her go. They didn't like him very much, but he was better than nobody. Thomas came. He soon got tired of playing soldiers. He began turning head over heels down the nursery floor. He could do it very well. I can make awful faces too, he said to Molly and Peter, and he began to pull such a dreadful face that the two children gazed at him in surprise and horror. Our mother says that if you pull faces and the wind happens to change, that it might get stuck like that, said Molly. Do stop it, Thomas. But Thomas wouldn't. He wrinkled up his nose and his forehead and blew out his cheeks. And do you know, the wind changed that very minute, and poor Thomas couldn't get his face right again. He tried and he tried, but he couldn't. It was dreadful. Whatever was he to do? Oh, Thomas, the wind changed. I saw the weather clock swing around that very moment, cried Molly. I did warn you. I do think you're silly. He can't go home like that, said Peter. Let's wash his face with hot water. Then perhaps it'll go right again. So they washed Thomas's face well, but it was as bad as ever when they'd finished. He screwed up his nose and his forehead and blown out cheeks. Oh dear, do you suppose Chingy would know what to do? Said Peter at last. Who's Chingy? Said Thomas. Never you mind, said Molly. Peter, go and find Chingy and see what he says. I'll stay here with Thomas. He mustn't go out of the nursery because if he meets Mother or Jane, they will think he's making faces at them and will be cross. Peter ran downstairs. He went into the garden and whistled a little tune that Chingy had taught him. Buns is in the planter eating leaves because she's mad because we made her sit up here. Can you see her?
She's right over there. Buns, get out there, girl.
Go get her.
Ah, Buns, get that.
Don't get dirt everywhere. Say, Emma, you're gonna break the plant. Emma, the plant. She used the leaves. Okay, back to this. Peter ran downstairs. He went into the garden and whistled a little tune Chingy had taught him. And he had to whistle this whenever he wanted the pixie. Chingy whistled back. Peter saw him under a big hawthorn bush, mending a hole in his coat. "What's up?" asked Chingy, sewing away. "We've got a boy in our nursery who's been making dreadful faces," explained Peter. "And the wind changed just as he was making an especially horrible one, and now he can't get his face right again. So Molly sent me to ask you if you could do anything to help." "A boy as silly as that doesn't deserve help," said Chingy, breaking off his cotton and threading his needle. "You go and tell him so." "Oh no, Chingy, we really must help him," said Peter. "His mother may think we made his face like that and we'll get into trouble. You don't want us to be sent home for a week, or sent back to school, no, sent to bed for a week, do you?" "No, I don't," said Chingy, putting on his coat. I'll help you because you're my friends. There's only one thing to do for a person who's been making faces when the wind changed." "What's that?" asked Peter. "You've got to get a bit of wind that blew just then and puff it into his face," said Chingy. "Then he'll be all right. But it's dreadfully difficult to get a bit of the same wind." That's Thomas, and that's his face. "How can we?" asked Peter in dismay. "We'd better go in the wishing chair to the windy wizard," said Chingy. "He knows all the in and outs of every wind that blows. I've seen the old wishing chair looking out the window this afternoon trying to get out, so I'm sure it's grown its wings again. Go and see, and if it has, tell Molly, and we'll go and get help from the old wizard." "Oh, thank you, Chingy," said Peter, and he ran indoors. He whispered to Molly all that Chingy had said. "I think the chair must have grown its wings," Molly said, "because there has been such a strange sound going on in the box room this afternoon. You know, knockings and bumping. I expect it's the chair trying to get out." "I'll go and see," said Peter. He ran up to the topmost flight of the stairs and opened the box room door. The wishing chair was standing by it, ready to fly off, but Peter caught hold of it just as it was slipping out the door. "Now, just wait a minute," he said, but the chair wouldn't. It forced its way past Peter, and the little boy jumped onto it. "Go to Chingy," he said, hoping the chair wouldn't meet anyone on the way. The chair flew downstairs and out into the garden. It flew to where Chingy was standing by the hawthorn bush. It was flapping its red wings madly, and Chingy jumped into it at once. "To the windy wizards," he shouted. "I say, Peter, isn't it in a hurry? It must have gotten tired of being shut up in the box room." Molly was looking out of the window. She had heard the chair flying downstairs. She saw it up in the air, carrying Peter and Chingy, and she wished she was there too. "Someone's got to stay with Thomas, though," she thought to herself. "He'd only run home or go and find our mother or something if we had left him quite alone. What an ugly face he has on now." You can only say that about an old character in a book. "I do hope Peter and Chingy find something to put it right." And that... Did they solve the problem? No, they did not. That is a to be continued. What is the problem? Anyone? Little Thomas's face is stuck. My mom used to say that same saying to me. If you keep doing that face, it might get stuck that way. No reflections since you're working on your inventors and inventions. And I hope you have a good afternoon. Don't pull any faces in case the wind changes. You never know, do you, Emma? So silly. That's a face. That's a face. It might get stuck that way.
It will never.
Okay, see you guys.